Hi there, it's Cheryl. Today we're going to talk about the F word, and I have to tell you what the F word is right off the bat so I don't get into trouble. The F word is fear. We're going to talk about fear today because, as you well know, it's not just an emotion, it's a powerful one. And as you might know this as well, fear can either propel you to greatness and give you Herculean strength, or it can almost be paralyzing. Have you ever heard of a mom who maybe their kid has their foot stuck under the back of a truck or something awful and they can lift up the back of the truck? Well, think of fear that way. It can either give you superhuman strength, it can be a superhuman power, or it can be paralyzing in that you can just not be able to act at all. So keep in mind, everyone is going to have fear, whether you're a world-class performer or an Olympian or anyone. All people have fear at some point or another. But the difference between world-class performers and regular people is how they react to fear, and not just how they react and manage it, but how they use it. We're going to talk about that. Now, there's something that I call the emotional wheel, and this is a way that you can gauge yourself as far as how you're doing with your emotions, and fear in particular. Now, if you think of your mind as a clock, and I know that's very simple, so I apologize for any of the neuroscientists out there, but if you think of your mind as a clock, zone performance or flow state is at 12 o'clock. That's when your creativity, your productivity, your drive, all those things are performing optimally. So in other words, let's say when you're between 11 and 1 o'clock. So the difference between regular people and world-class performers, again, they have all these emotions. They have fear, but they know what to do with it and they can regulate it. So they keep it between 11 and 1 o'clock. Now, if you get beyond 11 o'clock, in other words, into past thoughts, maybe past failures, or into the future, maybe what could happen if, then you start getting into the yellow zone of the emotional wheel. And I call that, that is really the caution department. So that means that you can recover to flow state or zone performance, but it's going to be a little challenging. And in the caution zone, that is where your creativity, your productivity, your motivation, and your ability to perform your best, starts to suffer. Now, as long as you catch it before you say you get too far into the past or too far into the future what ifs, let's say before you get to 9 o'clock or 3 o'clock, if you don't catch it then you get into what I call the red zone on the emotional wheel. So if you have fear for something and it starts to get to you and you are not aware of it and you don't catch it and it starts getting worse and you go from green to yellow, and if you go into red, and if it keeps going to get to the bottom of the emotional wheel, so that would be at 6 o'clock, you are in the danger zone. And what that means is that it's very difficult, if not impossible, to recover and get back to zone performance. So consider this. Remember that the difference between world-class performers and regular people is there's similarities and differences. Let's talk about a similarity. They feel fear as well. World-class performers get fearful, but they know how to manage it and they know how to use it. And I'm going to talk about that in particular. Again, if there's no awareness, if you've ever heard of a downward spiral, what happens is someone makes a couple errors, they're not aware of their emotions, and let's say they're not aware of fear, they might be afraid of losing, for example. They're not afraid, they go from optimal performance to the caution zone and then all the way down to 6 or the bottom of the emotional wheel. And that's when you're down there, that means you're in the red zone, and it means that you may actually have to take a break completely from what you're doing in order to recover back to zone performance. And if it's in the moment, that can be very detrimental. You might have to pull yourself out of a presentation. You may have to stop taking a test. When it comes to long-term planning, that means you get very narrow-sighted. That means that's where limiting beliefs live. when these emotions get out of control, especially fear. Now, let me tell you something that a lot of people don't know. A lot of times, and to be quite transparent with you, this is pretty current up to like the last couple years. With my background in applied sports psychology, I used to coach people in moments that really matter to just be very calm. So they would level up, and their way of leveling up was to be very calm. But there's some recent research out, and again, this is something that a lot of people don't know. So if you don't remember anything else about this video, please pay attention to this. If you have fear about something that you care about, you can use it as a superpower, and this is how. You're going to think of a very important conversation or event that you have coming up, and then you're going to think about what are you most fearful about? What are you so concerned about with this event? And then you're going to take that fear, and then you're going to not only accept it, but you're going to think of it as empowering you. And then you're going to, step 2 is going to think about one thing that you have 100% control over to make yourself better. So in other words, your fear is going to heighten your awareness so you can be even better than you would have been if you didn't have fear. Think of it this way. If you were complacent, you wouldn't have that level of thinking. So this is really next level thinking about fear that can propel you to being even better if you didn't have it. Now, what are the consequences of you not being aware of fear? What are the consequences of you not understanding how to use this as a superpower? What happens is your focus gets very narrow, you get conservative, and worst case scenario, you either quit or shut down. And we don't want that happening, because I know if you're watching this video, you are already mentally tough. You're probably already a high performer. So let's keep on with that momentum. So in other words, next time you feel the F word, the first step that you can do is to be aware of that fear, and then think about what is the one thing that you're most fearful of. And then the second step is, what's the one thing that you can do to be your absolute best? In other words, this fear can heighten your sense of awareness and heighten your sense of the possibilities of how you can be your absolute best. I hope that makes sense. Please be sure to send me a note, schedule a 15-minute consultation with me. I am glad to explain this to you in person. It is so powerful for teens and for adults. And I've seen it in work. And again, this is very current research within the last couple of years. It's powerful. A lot of people don't know about it, or maybe they don't buy into it. But if you want to take your performance to the next level, start thinking about the F word and using it to your advantage. I look forward to seeing you next time.